Wearing a black shirt on a hot and sultry day as this does not make sense, but opting for a large body-on-frame SUV still makes a whole lot of sense. And the latest member of the tribe is this, the MG Gloster. But what we want to find out is where the MG Gloster exactly fits in. And to find out just that, we've brought together other members of the Born Tough Club. We have with us the Ford Endeavour that's fresh from an engine and gearbox update. We also have the very likable Mahindra Alturas G4, and of course we couldn't forget the people's champion, the Toyota Fortuner. So let the games begin. The SUVs in consideration are in their fully loaded automatic transmission and 4x4 diesel guises. All of these SUVs are huge and will immediately appeal to the bigger is better crowd. Here's a look at how they compare on size. You've seen these SUVs before, so I'll quickly run through how they look. The MG Gloster is the longest SUV here, but as enormous as it is, it's also a bit anonymous. And there are a few too many badges. The big SUV doesn't stand out for design, though the tasteful use of silver accents and chrome help establish it as something premium. You won't find much bright work on the recently launched Ford Endeavour Sport. All that glittered is gone, with black replacing the chrome and silver elements on the macho Ford. In this blacked out avatar, it almost looks like an armor-protected vehicle. The Alturas G4 in contrast doesn't quite have the road presence of the others, and that's despite being the widest of the lot. It's smart and well turned out, but the Mahindra is down on visual drama. A facelift has been teased in South Korea and could help the impression. It's the Toyota Fortuner with the most distinctive styling of these four SUVs. The slim headlights and kinked window line are a break from the norm, while the general high-riding stance help camouflage the fact that the Fortuner is actually marginally smaller than rivals. Do note the facelifted Fortuner with tightened up styling comes to India in 2021. What do you think of these SUVs, and which one would you have? Let us know in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, do subscribe to the Autocar India channel now. On to their interiors, I'll start with the MG Gloster. Now, as large as the MG Gloster is, it doesn't feel as intimidating from the captain's chairs. The dashboard, yes, it's nice and wide, but it's also very low set, so you get a good and clear view out. Now, as for the look of things inside, now there is more than a passing resemblance to the latest BMWs in the positioning of the touchscreen and even the general layout of the instrument console. Much of what you see inside is premium too. There are plenty of soft touch materials in the cabin, and the tan surfaces help the appearance. That being said, this is no German car in quality, with the buttons on the center console being some of the ordinary feeling bits. Also, while the quilted stitching on the seats adds a richness to the look, the front seats aren't particularly comfy with excessive lower back support. The Altura's well-cushioned driver's seat is far nicer, and once in position, you like what you see. The Mahindra Alturas G4 is very neat and clean on the inside. The dashboard is nicely thought out, but what uplifts the cabin experience is the good level of quality. I really like things like the soft panel over here with this knitted and stitched effect. There's also this wooden panel that wouldn't look out of place in a Swedish car. Then even the smaller buttons and controls are of a consistently high standard. I really like the knurled knobs for the climate control and four-wheel drive system. If the Alturas is best on perceived quality, the Endeavour scores most for build quality. Now, I've not left that door open by mistake. I just want you to hear that solid thud on door shut that reminds you how well built the Ford Endeavour is. Now, that is a very reassuring start to your experience inside the Endeavour. Now, in terms of look and feel, yes, the Endeavour doesn't quite have the flash value of the latest rivals. It doesn't have the latest gizmos, but it is still a really well put together cabin and thoughtfully laid out. All the important controls are in easy reach. I like that the seats are large and comfortable, but what I can't get my head around is why Ford has left out reach adjust for the steering wheel. Also, shouldn't the blacked out ND Sport also have sported an all black interior? You'll have to ignore our test Fortuner's chocolate and black interior combo. 2020 model year diesel Fortuners get a new brown and black theme and also perforated leather seats. The mods should help uplift the Toyota's cabin that simply never felt special enough for an SUV at this price. Now, the basic design of the dashboard is fine, but the individual components just take a lot away. The touchscreen system, for instance, it feels aftermarket. The buttons lower down and the knob for the four-wheel drive system could be from a much cheaper car. Front seat comfort is really good though, even if the seats themselves lack extras like ventilation that you get on some of the others. And this leads us to the features the SUVs offer. You'd want your 30 lakh rupee plus SUV to be well equipped, so in ascending order of the length of their feature lists, we have the Fortuner, Alturas, Endeavour and Gloster. The Gloster is the only SUV with an onboard air purifier, 3-zone climate control, front seat heating and even a driver's seat massage function, though the latter is less relaxing touch and more deep tissue therapy for your back. Ford's Endeavour matches the Gloster with a panoramic sunroof, hands-free tailgate and semi-auto parking that'll steer the SUV into a detected slot, though the MG system does a better job of finding suitably sized parkings. The Mahindra Alturas is the only one here with ventilation for both front seats, going one up on the Gloster that offers the function only on the driver's seat. The Mahindra gets a single pane sunroof, which is a key feature missing altogether on the Fortuner. In the battle of the infotainment systems, it's the Gloster that has bragging rights with its class-leading 12.3-inch touchscreen. The screen is large but requires a semi-firm prod to register an entry. The Endeavour and Altura's 8-inch units are slicker in this respect. The Fortuner's 7-inch unit is the smallest and also looks like an aftermarket add-on. The MG and Ford stand out for their connected car tech, while it's the Gloster and Alturas that get you 360-degree cameras. Do note the MG's cameras are disappointingly low-res, and cool as the augmented reality parking display is, it seems pixelated. Over to the rear section of the cabin, and once again I'll start with the MG Gloster. So you will have to haul yourself up into the MG Gloster's cabin, but I can tell you that the Gloster makes good on that large wheelbase. There's loads and loads and loads of legroom. I can really stretch out, and then of course there are the seats. The Gloster is unique in the segment by offering the option of a 3-seat bench or captain's chairs at the back. The focus is clearly on delivering the most premium experience in the class, and the seats do help to that end. Now, they not only look premium, but they're really comfortable as well. And there's also loads of adjustability built into them. So right now, the seat is slid all the way back. You can slide them forward to balance legroom for the rear passengers. And I have to say, they're also quite generous on recline. Getting into the Alturas involves a bit of a trek up. Now that's quite a bit of a step into the Alturas cabin. It's the only one that doesn't get a footboard as standard, so that is something that you will have to take on the options list as soon as you book your Alturas. Now, as for the rear seat itself, this is again the only SUV that doesn't offer the option to move the seats back and forward, but even in the stock setting, as you can tell, there's lots of legroom. You can also adjust the backrest to your comfort, and there's this nice armrest. There's also plenty of width in the cabin, but it's not perfect. Because the seat is set a bit low, the seating position isn't ideal, and also some of you might find that the black roof lining sort of dims the experience. There's much to talk about the Endeavour's middle row too. So, the Endeavour's middle row experience. Now, the very first point of note is that you don't get the same sense of space in the Endeavour as you get in some of its rivals. But if it's going to be just two of you at the back, you will be actually quite comfortable. The seat cushioning is really well judged. You can also adjust the backrest angle, although you don't have all that much flexibility, both in terms of backrest angle in how much you can move the seat back and forth. As on the MG Gloster, a feature that will endear the Endeavour to a lot of buyers is its panoramic sunroof. Jumping into the Fortuner. So, the Fortuner's middle row. Now, it's not the roomiest, nor is it the plushest, but I can tell you that you will still be comfortable here. Now, the seat is set slightly on the firmer side, but there is a lot of support. Even despite them looking a bit flat, there is also the flexibility of moving your seat back and forth. And actually speaking, the seating position is among the nicest. A third row of seats gives these SUVs a lot of flexibility, but outings with the clan will be comfiest in the Gloster. Sliding the middle row seats forward gives a large enough clearing to the third row, and you can also make your way through the passage between the captain's chairs. Now, with the middle passenger seat set to a comfortable position, you can tell how much space there is in the back of the Gloster. I'm just under 6 feet tall, I have enough headroom, and there is enough knee room. Yes, the seating position is a bit knees up, but that's true of all third rows across the board. The Fortuner is the best of the rest. Its single lever middle row flip mechanism is convenient, and the resulting large aperture allows comfy access to the back. The rearmost seats are also usable. The middle row seat is set to a comfortable position, and I have a reasonable amount of legroom. Someone slightly smaller than me should be fairly comfortable at the back. What's nice is that you do get the option to adjust the backrest angle, and even the windows are of a fair size. The Alturas two-step middle seat flip is easy enough to execute, but the Mahindra's third row itself feels like a punishment posting. Now, as you can tell, the Alturas G4's third row is not a place you want to spend much time in. The seat is virtually on the ground, your knees are pointed skywards, and because the middle row seat is not adjustable, this is the max space you can get. Headroom is also very tight for tall people, and what makes the rearmost section of the cabin feel more claustrophobic still are these small windows. What you really get to see is this big mass of black. As for the Endeavour, you'll have to contort your way in because the middle seats don't tumble, leaving a small opening to enter through. Space and comfort aren't great either. The Endeavour's third row is also not suitable to adults, let alone large adults like me. There is virtually no footroom, and when you do adjust the middle row seat for a comfortable position for the passenger, what you are left with is very little space. When it's time to load up, it's the Gloster that offers that crucial bit more luggage space than the others with all seats up, though the MG does have the highest loading lip. All these SUVs do offer the flexibility of 50-50 split third rows. But where the Gloster, Endeavour and Altura's seats fold flat to sit flush with the floor, the Fortuner's seats swipe upwards and sideways via a slightly rudimentary mechanism. Powered tailgates are the norm, but the ND goes a step further with a convenient powered rear seat lift and fold function. Time to get moving. 4-cylinder diesel engines are the norm, but there's quite a range in engine size and power outputs. The Gloster and Endeavour come powered by relatively small 2-litre engines, but a segment-unique twin-turbo arrangement helps the MG top the power and torque charts. Its 218 HP and 480 Newton meters are the most here. Impressively, the big and heavy Gloster also makes good on its power advantage with the quickest 0 to 100 kph and kickdown acceleration times. The thing is, the stats only tell part of the story. The MG engine feels quite humdrum under 2000 RPM, and to compound matters, the 8-speed gearbox also takes its time to shift down when you need instant power. Paddle shifters and manual shifts via the gear lever do give some more control, but the fact is that you still have to work around the engine's characteristics. Shifting the drive mode dial to sport also only helps so much. Relaxed highway drives are more the Gloster's forte, where the linear build of power and deep reserve of torque make the MG a pleasant cruiser. Good sound insulation also helps to this end. The Alturas also scores well on this front. If there's one thing that distinguishes the Mahindra Alturas G4, it has got to be the refinement. Now, the engine runs quiet, ambient noise is well contained, and in effect, what you get is a very relaxed experience. The high level of refinement also means that the Alturas masks its speed and performance really well. In fact, it doesn't feel as fast as it actually is. In all-out and kickdown acceleration, the Alturas register times second only to the Glosters. It feels peppy and throttle responses are also really nice. Even so, this is an SUV that you'd naturally drive a notch down. A laid-back 7-speed gearbox is part of the reason why. You can't talk gearboxes and simply gloss over the Endeavour's new 10-speed torque converter unit and how it works with the new 2-litre engine. Now, the Endeavour's new 2-litre 170 horsepower engine doesn't break any ground in terms of power. But it's the 10-speed automatic gearbox that does all the heavy lifting in the Endeavour. Now, the gearbox is really reactive to your throttle foot, and small taps are rewarded with a downshift. And with 10 ratios to play with, it's not just going down by a ratio or 2, at times it goes down by as many as 4. Some might find the gearbox too reactive, and this is something that takes getting used to. Modulate inputs precisely and the gearbox will keep the engine spinning in its comfort zone. Performance from the 170 HP and 420 Nm engine is sufficient, but that encompassing feeling of power that the ND's old 3.2-litre 5-cylinder engine provided is missing here. The Ford's new 2-litre engine is also quite grumbly. It's a pity Toyota didn't have a BS6 spec Fortuner for us to sample, because it would be interesting to see if and by how much the engine has quietened down with the incorporation of emission control hardware. This BS4 spec car is the loudest at idle and the gravelly note stays with you. Refinement isn't the Toyota engine's strong suit, but performance surprisingly is. It's really responsive to throttle inputs, particularly in power mode, and it really feels light on its feet at most times. What also allows you to make a little bit more of the engine are the paddle shifters. They're quite responsive, and even in full auto mode actually, the gearbox works quite well and efficiently. That's that about performance. What are these SUVs in ride and handling? Buying a large, heavy, body-on-frame SUV entails living with some compromises on the dynamics and comfort fronts. In that sense, it's the Gloster that demands the least of you. It's absorbent at low speeds. Yes, there is a bit of movement, but that's something you just expect from a body-on-frame SUV. But when you go faster, there's no unnecessary movement. It feels well tied to the ground, and it really feels like a hefty and reassuring drive. The slick steering allows fluid changes of direction too. Fact is, in ride and handling, the Gloster feels the most accomplished SUV here. Interesting given that there's a Ford in the mix. The ND's suspension has been softened over the years, and this has taken some joy out of the driving experience. There's a bit of up and down movement now at high speeds, and sadly the steering is also not as slick as it once was. The Ford is, however, ace in bump absorption. The suspension has loads of travel and the big chunky tires absorb a lot of the initial impact. The suspension also works silently and without protest, and the overall feeling is that this is a car built to take a lot of abuse. The Alturas feels different in that sense. Low speed bump absorption is decent and the big Mahindra is also relatively user-friendly in town. At low speeds and in town, you like how easy to twirl the Alturas' steering is. Sadly, that lightness also remains at higher speeds. Also, when you go fast over a broken patch of road, you will realize that the Alturas is not quite as solidly put together as its rivals. The Fortuner feels more rugged, but there are compromises. When you're out cruising on the highway, you'll be quite happy with the Toyota Fortuner's high-speed manners. It feels quite composed, it feels settled, and the steering is also surprisingly direct. The thing is, the Fortuner also makes the least effort to hide its rudimentary body-on-frame architecture. Now, when you go over a pothole or a broken patch, you will move around the most in the Fortuner. You'll hear the most judder from the Fortuner suspension too. And while the steering feels nice and direct at high speeds, it is also the heaviest in town. What are these SUVs like off-road? A quick background check will tell you that all 4 models get hill descent control and 4-wheel drive. The Gloster is the only one without low range, but the super short first gear should suffice for all but the most hardcore buyers. We'll have to put them through a slush test for the full off-road review, but all the SUVs made it through our rock-laden course, though there were differences in how they went about it. The Fortuner felt the most sure-footed and rugged, crawling up rocks with surprising ease. Mahindra's Alturas did well for itself too, though past experience tells us the fitment of the optional footboard would severely compromise the ramp breakover angle. We didn't need to summon the Endeavour or Gloster's electric rear differential locks, but we did use their off-road modes that prime the SUVs for the environment. The ND didn't break a sweat on the obstacle course, but the soft suspension did have the Ford rockabout on the boulders, which is not optimal. The Gloster proved to be capable too, though the staccato low-end responses did require very precise metering of the throttle. Before we get to the end, here's how the SUVs compare on safety kit. All models get ABS and ESC, but it's the Alturas with the most airbags. The big talking point on the Gloster are its ADAS or Advanced Driver Assist Systems, but they're a bit of a mixed bag. The driver fatigue reminder, lane departure warning and blind spot detection features work well. Adaptive cruise control that automatically alters speed to maintain a preset distance to the vehicle ahead has its idiosyncrasies. It's not as smooth as it should be in speed variation. Also, while it's great to have the safety net of automatic emergency braking, it's hard to trust the system on chaotic Indian roads. So, which one should it be? The Fortuner is the most popular SUV here, and to many, it's simply the default choice in the segment. The Toyota has its strengths in its eager performance and genuine off-road ability. But as a product, it simply doesn't feel as sophisticated as a 34.4 lakh rupee SUV should. View the package in its entirety though, giving due weightage to the Fortuner's proven reliability, ease of ownership, and promise of good resale value, and you will overlook many of its lesser points. The 35.1 lakh rupee Endeavour Sport is the more likeable SUV. That strong build remains central to the Ford's appeal. What's missing though is that wow factor on the inside, and space is also down on rivals. And pleasant as it is, the new 2-litre diesel engine isn't quite as characterful as the old 3.2 either. If you'll be putting the third row of seats to use often, the Alturas G4 is not the model for you. That the Mahindra doesn't feel as hardcore as the other SUVs could be a deal breaker for some too. On the plus side, it's quiet and comfy, and that well-appointed cabin just makes you feel like your money is gone far. It only helps that at 31.7 lakh rupees, the Alturas is also the most affordable SUV here. Spend some time in one and you'll wonder why the likeable Mahindra hasn't sold to potential. MG, on the other hand, might have an easier job finding buyers for the Gloster. Best in class and first in segment are phrases you'll hear repeatedly in the sales pitch, and fact is the Gloster is the largest, comfiest and best equipped SUV here. Sure, the engine isn't the friendliest in town and attention to detail could have been better, but look at the big picture and the Gloster is the one SUV that does it all. Bring in the price and the deal sweetens further. The top spec Gloster Savvy comes in at 35.5 lakh rupees, but you can happily forego the ADAS features by opting for the Sharp variant that drops the sticker price to just under 34 lakh rupees. So, big on substance and value, the Gloster seems poised to upset the established order.